Inspiring interviews with today's top landlords. This is the Rental Income Podcast. And now, Dan Lane.
Morgan, when you first decided to start buying rental properties, you looked around in the town that you were living in, and you found that the returns weren't that great. But when you looked about an hour and a half, 2 hours away, the returns started to look a lot better. Tell me what you found.
So my returns are nearly double. The rents are double. The after repair values are double after the renovations. And the tenant quality is so much better outside of my backyard. So that's really why I chose to, not necessarily start in my backyard, and then I branched out further. After
Morgan saw that it really wasn't a big deal to be close to his rental properties, he packed up and he moved to a better climate that was 1,000 miles away. On the show today, we're going to talk about how he's doing this remotely. We'll talk about what he's looking for in a property and how he found the properties he bought. And we'll also take a look at the money and see how he's financing his purchases. Joining us on the show today from Tampa is Morgan Ehrenzeller. We'll take a quick break to thank our sponsors. We'll come right back and we'll talk to Morgan. It's a lot of work to find a really good rental property. And when you actually find that property, you want to make sure you're working with a lender that can get that loan closed. The lender that I recommend is Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. She's a nationwide lender, and her specialty is helping investors finance rental properties. She has a ton of loan programs, and she can find something customized to you for your situation. If you want to find out more or you're ready to get started today, just go to ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE lendinggroup.com. NMLS 42056.
Rental Income Podcast.
So, Morgan, you were living in Pennsylvania when you first started buying rentals, and now you're about 1,000 miles away in Tampa. Has that made things more difficult?
In a sense, yes, it does make it more difficult, but as an entrepreneur, it just makes you pivot and develop better systems and processes, which I like because I'm constantly improving my systems and processes to be better and better. So at first, yes, it was very challenging, but as you grow and you increase your tool belt of resources, it actually gets a lot easier.
Do you have a local manager helping you out?
So the majority of my properties I actually manage myself from here in Tampa across the country. I did recently, however, hire a property manager to take on a few of my properties, not in the sense because I can't do it, but in the sense of I'm trying to buy back my time. And if I can buy back my time for 10% of the gross rent and take all that headache and stress and dealing with the phone calls and all that away from me, I think that's a great investment for the return on my time.
Sure.
Just because I know since I'm so young, time is my most valuable asset.
Tell me about the area that you invested in. What's it like?
Yeah, so I really started getting my real estate portfolio down in the Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania area. I did this because I went to college there, and then I went to a foreclosure auction and got a house for a steal of a price, $10K. So I invested in this area. There's a lot of medical going on. There's a new medical campus being developed by Geisinger. And then a little bit northeast, you have Scranton, the Electric City. So that's where the majority of my portfolios are, is the northeast Pennsylvania region. There you'll find a lot of blue collar work. I actually much rather would have blue collar tenants than white collar tenants. For the same reason you're seeing, all these tech people getting laid off in the past 1 to 2 years, that the job market's getting absolutely wrecked. So that insulates me in a sense from my tenant profile.
So tell me what you've done. How many properties have you bought in this town?
I probably have roughly, off the top of my head, around 30 properties in the northeast Pennsylvania region.
And are they single families, duplexes? Like what kind of properties are they?
The majority of them are single family residents.
Okay. Tell me about this first property. So you found a auction property that was $10,000.
I went and toured this. I saw this one house that was listed for sale for $10K. I was like, wow, that's extremely cheap. Like, that's cheaper than most people's cars nowadays. Mm-hmm. So I went and toured it with the realtor. I got to walk inside it, and then I liked it a lot after I toured it. Granted, it needed, almost a full entire renovation. And we toured it. And then the next day I called her and said, hey, I want to buy this. And she goes, Morgan, unfortunately, I showed it to you the last day it was available. It's now going into foreclosure. Here's the details for the foreclosure. So she gave me the details for it. Normally in foreclosures, you can't go inside or see the inside or anything like that. So I did have this little competitive of an edge because I got to see the inside of it, the day before, days before it started that process. So from there, the auction started out at 10K, and I was literally the only single person that bidded on it. Granted, there was, I think, like $2,500 in fees and just nonsense junk fees. So it came out to 12.5K total. So I got that one, and then I got that while I was still in college, and then I slowly started fixing it up myself. And right when I graduated college, I, was fixing it up, doing drywall, painting, flooring, all the stuff that I could do myself to help save money. So I did that, put in a lot of sweat equity. I had about $17,000 in the renovation put into it. And then after that, I did a bridge loan because banks wouldn't refinance it to me because I didn't have tax returns yet. I was so young. I think my credit score was in the mid 600s. So, I wasn't an outstanding candidate by any means for a mortgage, so to say. So I did a bridge loan on that, and then I pulled out all that money and went and bought some more properties, and then eventually refinanced that bridge loan before maturity.
Okay, so you were all in with the purchase price and the rehab, about $30,000 with
roughly
everything.
30,000.
And is that typical for that area, that there's properties that are $10,000?
Absolutely not. No, you're not going to find a property under 100K really on the market anywhere.
Okay, so this was just a one-off, just a really, almost like a mispriced house.
Exactly. Yeah, I saw that, and I seen other properties in the area, and this was 10K. I was like, this is a no-brainer.
And when you looked at it, I know you walked through it with your realtor, but bidding on it, you couldn't get an inspection done. I'm assuming you're probably not. It sounds like you're handy, but you're not a contractor. Like, was it a little terrifying to buy a property without getting like a thorough inspection done on it?
Yes and no. It was because these were my first properties. So I'm sure as when you start out, you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. But in the sense, my dad was a carpenter by trade. Well, still is a carpenter by trade. And his dad was a carpenter as well. And he's been a carpenter since he was like about 9 years old. So me growing up, my dad would always have me, holding the flashlight, so to say, on all of his side jobs. Not necessarily, probably to babysit me, but teach me things as well along the way. So I'm very, very grateful for that, to have that solid foundation education base in the construction field. He had me up on a roof at probably 12 years old, redoing roofs and stuff. So in the sense where a lot of people would see that as a huge challenge, not knowing what to do, they're scared. I look at it completely different because I grew up around it just from being around my father.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So you've got some kind of a background. So you weren't going in there 100% cold. Okay. So you buy that property, and then did you buy it and fix it up with cash?
Yes. Yep. Okay. I bought it and fixed it up with cash.
Okay. And then you refied to get your $30,000 back.
Yeah, and then I got some more. I got a lot more too from the sweat equity I put into it.
Okay. So what was the house appraised at?
The last appraisal was $126,000.
Wow. Okay. So that's a home run. So I mean, you created almost $100,000 in equity by buying that property right and fixing it up.
Yeah, and about a 3 to 4 week time frame. And then I quickly came to a realization, I was 22 years old at the time. And I quickly came to the 21, 22 years old at the time. I just made $100K in 3-4 weeks. Yeah. Probably no other job is going to do this for me in the W-2 world with where I'm at, with my age, my experience, and everything like that.
Absolutely.
So then it just clicked with me that real estate is my future. I need to keep doing this.
And what did this property rent for?
It's rented right now for $1,400 a month.
$1,400. Okay, so that's an incredible return. All right, so then you got your $30,000 back. You got some extra money. What did you do with that money?
It's a great question. So I went and I found another screaming deals. I found another 2 properties that I think I found them. It was on Facebook or Craigslist. So I got another 2 properties for $44,000 for the pair. I ended up buying outright. One's a 5-bedroom, 2-bath. It's currently rented to an insurance company for $2,350 a month. And the other property is a 1-bed, 1-bath with a garage. And that one is currently listed for rent right now at $1,250.
Did those properties need work when you bought them?
Across the board on both of them, I'd say roughly $40,000.
Okay. And so the property that's rented to an insurance company, is that someone that had a problem at their house and the insurance company is paying to get them a place to live?
Exactly. Their insured's house ended up burning down. So then they had to come in and house them somewhere else and pay for that. So the insurance is the one that actually pays it all. And that's why.
Do you get more from the insurance company than you would get if you were rented to a regular tenant?
I would say yes. I would say you definitely have more pull and can charge a little bit more of a premium.
How did you do that? Did the insurance company come to you, or did you find someone at the insurance company to work this out?
That's a great point. So they actually reached out to me. I actually had this on a handful of different occasions where insurance companies will reach out to me to rent. So yeah, they generally always reach out to me that they're looking for their client, and then we just go from there.
Okay. All right. So you bought your second 2 properties by taking the equity that you had created from the first property. Have you used that same strategy as you continued to buy more rentals?
I have. And then also in the sense where I don't want to be, huge, very, very leveraged with my debt, because I know that's how a lot of people go down. So I'm very conservative. Right now, my debt is hovering right around 34%. And then I also had some extra leftover money there. So I found another house foreclosure, and this one is basically a third party would hold the note as a private lender. So I found another house for $13,000, and then I put 25% down of $13,000 on this other one, and that one's worth currently about $175K and is rented for $700 a month. Extremely below market rent, but in the sense of it's the same tenants who got foreclosed on, and if I don't have to go in and drop, $30 to $50,000 on a renovation, my mortgage on that's $133 a month, and they're paying me $700. So I'll just keep riding that one out until they move out, and then once they move out, I'll go in, renovate, and bring the rent up to market. So
you're renting to the people that were living in the house that got foreclosed on?
Yes, as crazy as it sounds.
Wow. Now, that would make me a little bit nervous that they weren't paying their mortgage. Yeah, I'd be worried they're not going to pay the rent. Did that cross your mind?
100% that crossed my mind. I went and talked to them and said, "Hey, I'm closing on this date on the property. If you guys want, you can continue living here, but rent's going to be, X amount. If not, you guys have to be out by this time." They gave me the money, and honestly, to this date, they've been there for about 2 years. They have been
Okay. Wow.
honestly the one of the best and easiest tenants I have. I don't hear a peep from them. They pay early, which is very shocking
Yeah.
and surprised me. But yeah, they honestly are one of the less headaches I deal with.
Do you know if their mortgage payment was less than or more or less than what they're paying in rent?
I never asked that question. I would assume it was more because why would you not pay your mortgage with 13K left on it,
Yeah.
go into foreclosure, and then rent from the person who bought
That's
the
crazy.
house?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very absurd to me as well.
So now you mentioned that your credit, you didn't have a lot of credit when you first started buying rentals. Has that been an issue at all as you've been financing your properties?
Yes and no. So now I got to about 10 properties and started running out of money and stuff. And I started thinking was, how do I keep scaling? And I quickly came to the realization that I need to start leveraging other people's money, or if that's credit, banks, private money, hard money, whatever the case may be. So now I do raise a lot of money for deals. But at first I didn't really have that mentality. But as you grow and as your business grows, you always have to be pivoting on how you can keep scaling. Now I realize, money is the major backbone to the whole operation in this.
Were you raising money from like friends and family that saw what you were doing and wanted to be a part of it?
Mainly friends, no family. I don't come from a wealthy family at all. So mainly a lot of my college friends, when I started branching out and raising money, saw what I was doing, and they're still young, just graduating college, don't have a wife, don't have kids, can really take risk now versus when they're 30, 40, 50 years old. So the majority of that came from just my friends from college seeing what I wanted to do, and they wanted to get involved in it.
So how does the money work? Like, are you going 50-50? Like they come up with half the down payment and you come up with the other half?
So some of them are like that. Each one's a little different. It depends on who's doing what type of work, the workload that's involved, after it's renovated, who's, doing property management. There's a lot of little nitty gritty variables, but I would say, across the board of what it looks like on a lot of these that I structure in the single family house space is I'll find like a subject to deal or a creative finance where it's very minimum down payment or just, take over the mortgage. So I'll find a screaming deal. I'll underwrite it. I'll, present to them the projected returns. This is what we're looking at, renovation after repair value. And then if they like it, they'll fork up the money for the very minimal down payment and the renovations. From there, we'll refinance and then get them paid out in, 8 to 12 months or 6 to 12 months, however long it takes. So that's generally what it looks like. And then they don't really do any of the work. I do all of it.
All right. So
they're working with us.
They're putting up the money and you're doing the work, but you're not necessarily putting money into the deals.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So I think that's a pretty good deal. I mean, they've got the money, you've got the skill, and you're teaming up together. And then what do you do with the cash flow? Do you split that down the middle?
Right. So before I even go into, a partnership like that, I ask them, what's your vision here? Because if they have a short-term vision, I already know we're not going to work and align well together. So I don't like to partner with, just everyone and anyone. I make sure that they have the long-term vision. And really what we do with the cash flow is we create an LLC, create the LLC bank account. And once they get that first taste and they see that I perform, they're hooked and they want to keep, throwing money back in and throwing back in. So we just reinvest it, I'll put it all in the bank account, and they're just like, Morgan, you know what you're doing. I trust you. Let's keep building this.
Okay.
So they don't want any of the cash flow right now. They have the long-term vision.
All right. So the cash flow you would save up, and obviously some of it would be if there's any repairs or something comes up at the house. But then would you take that money eventually and maybe buy another property with it?
100%.
Okay.
Yep, that's the whole plan around it.
Okay, so then you're just using the cash flow to reinvest and buy more properties. And then the long-term vision with the property, at some point down the road, would you sell the property, maybe in 10, 20 years, at some point down the road, sell the property, and then that's when they would get paid out?
So in a sense, we could cross that bridge when the time comes, but a lot of the time we refinance after these renovations and then they get paid out everything, their down payment and their renovation costs. So they're already getting they're recouping their money actually within the first year.
They've got the money back, but then they still keep the ownership in the property.
Correct. Yeah, I don't take them out or anything like that.
And then the net effect to that is you have an investor that you've given your money back to, or given their money back to, and now you're 50-50 partners in a property that you didn't put any money into.
100%. And then, like, as long as I perform on my end, they like it. They're getting better returns than, stocks, bonds, whatever. So they're hooked. That gives me a lifetime investor.
Yeah. Has anybody gotten into it and then for whatever reason needed to get out or needed to get their money back?
So far, no. And like I said, I'm very clear with setting expectations. This is a long-term play. This is not a short-term play. And I don't want to partner with anyone who has a short-term vision.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I mean, what a great way to grow your portfolio without having to put money into the deal. I think that's really awesome.
Yeah. Yep. Like I said, I'm young. I don't have kids. I'm not married. So I can grind. I work 16 hours a day. I don't mind. I don't mind doing it at all.
What a great strategy. If anyone wants to connect with Morgan, I've got his contact information on the website. You can find it at rentalincomepodcast.com/episode 464. I'd like to thank Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group for sponsoring today's episode. Chaley has a special limited time offer just for our listeners. If you mention Rental Income Podcast, she will credit you back $250 at closing. This offer is valid for first mortgages only. It's not applicable to second mortgages or HELOCs. If you want to find out more or you want to set up a time to talk to Chaley personally, you can track her down at ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE, lendinggroup.com, NMLS 42056. Thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. I'll be back with a new episode next Tuesday. My name is Dan Lane, and this has been the Rental Income Podcast.